Hey everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome back to the build. This time, not so much building, just a little bit of a chit chat today. We are going to, sort of close out this phase of the build, this first big chunk of it, and go through the costs of what it took to turn this field into a field with this thing in it. So I have all my costs put together. I thought we'd run through the different components or the different kind of areas of the costs, run through all of that, and maybe kind of go through some of the whys that I haven't covered before, and all of that. So for those of you who only care what the actual total number is for the cost of the building so far, that is $170,000. Thank you for watching. Make sure you maybe leave a thumbs up on your way out. But for those of you who want a little more of a detailed breakdown, let's get into things a little bit. I'm gonna go back outside for a little bit because it's actually nice and warm. We've had this like cold spell where it's been like -30 the last couple of weeks, and today it's above freezing. So 60-degree temp swing. It feels like summer out here. So quick refresher on how we kind of got to this stage. So I had a warehouse space that I was renting since summer of 2020. It is currently the last week of 2022. In February of 2021, so almost a year ago, I got notice that my lease wasn't going to be renewed, and I had to find somewhere to move my business operations to, which seemed fine. That seems like a plenty enough time to find something. Wasn't able to find anything to buy or rent, and it came down to, well, we have the option, I guess, of putting up a building on our own property. So that's kind of what ended up happening. So we made the decision to go forward or like look into putting up a building. That was the last week of June. And then the last week of July, we were ordering parts, or I guess materials and things to actually put up the building. And that time frame really drove the decision-making process of what we ended up building, because we have this thing here called winter, which you don't really want to be building a building in winter. You can, go for it. I don't want to be doing that in winter. So there's two kind of decisions there, and it's like the first off would be things that we actually get. So lead times that make sense, and then pulling off anything from the building to make it more, let's say, affordable. Not so much affordable, but spread the costs over time. So the biggest thing that we've been talking about for a long time is basically all the exterior of the building is all stuff that can be pushed off into the future. So there is the plan for a lean-to porch thing over here. That was one of the questions that we got quite a bit during the build, is that why is a steel on this side of the building not full height? It's because the top section comes off to put on the porch trusses when we get to that. So we could pull that whole section of the project completely off, so we don't have that adding to the build timeline before winter starts, and I can push the cost of whatever that ends up being, I'm guessing $20,000 or something, into the future to make this build more affordable for us. Or it's the same in the end, but it spreads it out over time. That's also why there's no apron out here or any sort of exterior landscaping finishing work. That's all stuff that can be pushed out in the future without having really any impact on the building itself. So that's kind of, I guess, a little bit of the background of things. So let's start running through the costs and seeing how this adds up quickly, really quickly. So also, as a quick refresher, the overall dimensions of the building, we have a 40-foot width, we are 72 feet long, and we have a 14-foot sidewall height. So before even doing anything, permits. The permits for the building came in at $2,000. Next up was turning the field into a building site. So the site prep from the concrete contractors, that came in at $14,000. So for that, we had them come by and they scraped all the topsoil and grass off the area. So that also included adding this driveway here from the, I guess, the original area of the driveway that runs by the other barn up to here. It's about maybe 150 feet of driveway. So we had road base and fabric laid for that. And that makes this area quite a bit more accessible. That was one of the things that we had sort of pulled off of the initial project, just to get the cost down a little bit, because I figured, you know, a road now, a road later, what difference does it make? But the day they showed up and they couldn't get their pickup truck with their skid steer on the back of it up the driveway or up the little hill onto the lawn, there was a day that we decided, I guess we're putting the road back in to the project. So I'm happy we added that back in. It's something that would have been done eventually, but it did make getting up here and actually getting to the site during the build quite a bit more convenient and less eventful. So the other part of the prep work was the footings. So we have 25 footings. They are 24 inches in diameter and 4 feet tall or deeper, whatever you want to say for that. There's a total of 13 yards of concrete for those footings. So that covers all the site prep work that the concrete folks did. And next we can get into the actual building package itself. So I talked about this a bit during the build, but the building is a kit building type thing from Menards. So you can go there or you can go online. You can design your building in their designer app thingamabobber, and then they will give you essentially a purchase list, and they'll fill that purchase list for you of all of the boards and the steel and every little piece you need to actually put up said building. Biggest reason for going with them was lead time. They had the better lead time of a few of the kit type of building companies we looked at. It was like 6 weeks, which was perfect because that would put us starting in September, which we did. And then some of the other ones we looked at were like 10 to 12, which would have put us starting the build in like mid-October when the weather starts going to crap. So that was the biggest reason for doing the Menards kit thing. Now my hands are getting cold. So I have the costs for the building broken down into 3 kind of categories. I have the framing lumber, which is all of the posts and the walls and the purlins and every stick of lumber that goes into it, except the trusses, which are a separate item. And then I also have all of the steel as its own separate item as well. So that would be all of the paneling for the roof, the 2 roofs or the 2 roof slopes, the walls, all of the trim, every piece of steel essentially. And since the building itself was something that we did as far as providing the labor for, I can break out the material costs separately from the labor of actually erecting the building. So the framing package was $17,500. Drop my list. That also includes those brackets that attach the posts into the footings. So that all came as part of that package. So back in one of the early episodes, we had a delivery truck show up with the framing lumber. The contents on the bed of that truck was $17,500. Next up are the trusses. They are $500 a piece. We have 9 of them, and there was a $500 delivery charge for that semi to bring them here. So we got $5,000 in trusses. And while we're talking about trusses, I'll cover this again. I talked about this in a lot more detail in one of the older videos about storage trusses and why I went with just a standard open style truss. With storage trusses, you don't get a whole lot of floor capacity. So if you're looking to do something like an office, maybe like an apartment, if you repackage and ship packing peanuts, that might be some actual valuable floor space for you. For me, there's not enough load capacity there for me to actually make that floor space usable, and I thought it would be a lot more useful for me to have a just open ceiling. I can extend things up into the trusses and do it that way. I also have the ability here, because we don't have any really ceiling load, I have 9-foot spacing here in the trusses, so I need much less material, and I also have more room to like actually make that space usable because I can actually put things up through the trusses. Versus doing something with the floor up here, you would have trusses every 2 feet, so you would have approximately 4 times the number of trusses as I have here, so your truss cost would go to about $20,000. Next up is the steel, so that's all the red stuff, all the gray stuff, and all the white stuff that kind of surrounds everything there. All of that was $20,000. And what's kind of nice about the kits is they all come pre-cut to length, so all of the roof pieces were cut to whatever length they need to be for all, I guess, 2 roof pitches, all 4 roof areas. The sidewall sheets are all cut to length for you already. The only thing is the end pieces need to be cut. They need to have the actual roof slope cut onto them. And there's they don't give you any margin for error. So it's like, you gotta be perfect with them. That was the only kind of downside. They don't even give you like a little extra for your cuts. It's like you start right at the very corner they clipped, and hopefully you got enough to keep the angle actually what it is in real life versus what it's supposed to be, in the plans. That was a little bit difficult. It's a lot of measuring, a lot of going back and forth and double checking your work and making sure before you actually make that cut. But other than that, though, it was nice just to be able to pull the pieces off the stack and just go. No actual extra cutting required, except for this whole wall here, the windows, and the door. So we have 7 windows here lining the west wall as well as this door, and all of those were about $3,000. So that's this wall of windows and doors. We got the overhead garage door thing that had the longest lead time. It's like 3 months, I think, and that was $3,000 as well. So total package for the entire building, material cost, $48,000 for a bunch of materials on pallets sitting in a field, ready to be assembled into a building. So next thing on the list is going to be labor to turn said parts into said building. So total labor cost was $18,000. That covers Donovan's time, Jack's time, and Lori's time, the few days that she was here. So now we can start adding on the bigger costs, the much bigger costs, starting with diving into the floor and the heating system. So underneath the floor, we have a vapor barrier, we have a layer of rigid insulation, and we have PEX tubing in there that circulates our hot liquid to heat the slab. And just running through the costs, the insulation, vapor barrier, and the tape to actually tape all the seams, the material cost on that was $4,500. We provide the labor for setting all that ourselves, so that's part of the labor cost that we just touched on previously. After that was installed, we had our plumbers out and they installed all the PEX. We have 10 loops of about 300 feet each. It's about 3,000 feet of PEX laid down there, and that came in at a cost of $7,000 installed. And then lastly, the actual heating system. So everything from the PEX up, this whole situation right here, the boiler and the circulation system, that is $11,500 installed. The concrete for the floor, that was $24,000. The desired pour thickness was supposed to be 5 inches, but I think they poured a little bit thicker than that, but they still charged me the same because I paid for a floor, and they gave me a floor that just happened to be thicker. So $24,000 for that. They brought out 55 yards of concrete that day, and they used almost all of it. They must have poured at least 52 or 53 yards in here. So it's a lot of concrete. Now, one of the most expensive items is all the yellowy white stuff covering everything all over. The spray foam insulation, that was $30,000. So they gave you a few options for the spray foam. The first would be just to do a 1-inch like flash spray over the whole building, and that would give you your air barrier that you're going to get from closed cell spray foam, and that was $18,000. And there was the option to add 1 inch to either the walls or the ceiling or roof line at $4,000 per inch per wall or ceiling. So I added the extra inch to the walls, that's $4,000. I added 2 more inches to the ceiling or the roof or whatever, so that's another $8,000. So $18,000 base plus $12,000 of upgrades, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. So obviously I haven't run the heating system through a full season yet, but at least so far, it seems like it's working really well. The boiler doesn't seem like it has to work that hard to maintain temperature in the space, which is nice. It tells me that the insulation is doing its job. And what's really nice about this is that you have the continuous barrier, this continuous air seal from the floor all the way up around and back down again. The only places we have gaps in the actual envelope the windows and the doors. That's it. So any kind of leakiness that they happen to have, because I bought some budget windows, is where we're going to have our air leakage. And as far as the surface area of the entire building, those windows are not that big at all. So it's surprisingly working okay, but I'll share some more data when I have it. So next up is electrical, and this cost is actually going to come up a little bit more because they've been out here this week, putting in outlets and runs and whatever. They haven't billed for that yet, but so far to get this panel here and get temporary power into this building came in at $4,000. Now the electrical cost sort of evolved over time here. So the original intention was to have the dedicated service for this building installed as part of this section of the build and not have that temporary power line connecting us to the other building. That didn't happen, so I had budgeted about $10,000 to have service brought into this building, which didn't happen, and I was planning on just having the electricians just get the service into the building and set the panel and not install or not run any of the electrical, and I'd take care of that myself. So I kind of got to that point where I just wanted things to be done, so I was more than happy just to have them take care of all the runs and get everything wired in so I don't have to worry about it, and it would just be done and kind of ready to go, because I have been trying to get things set up still, and it's nice to just not have to worry about one more thing. So that is the electrical so far. I expect that it will go up another 4,000-ish or so. So I'll probably around, what did I say, 8? Yeah, I'll probably around 8,000 for electrical to this point. And then whenever our power company is able to run our service, I will have that cost as well in the future. It's one of those future things. All right, so now for the last of the costs to talk about, equipment rental. That stupid lift. So the lift rental ended up coming in at $6,000. We had 2 month rentals and a week rental. So the monthly rentals are $2,000 a piece. The week rentals are $1,000 a piece, so that's $5,000. You have $200 for transport each way, so that's $400. And then you got tax on top of that, $6,000 to rent a lift. Now, there's no way we could have done this without that lift, so it was definitely money well spent. But when you have equipment sitting here, it's like TikTok, let's go. Because if it's sitting here and not working, it's not making back its rental cost. So that is the last of the big things on the list of things that brought the current build total to $170,000. So the equipment rental thing kind of segues us into a quick topic that I don't have a whole lot to say about, and that is, did I save any money doing this myself, or like providing labor myself? And as far as my own time and labor goes, I don't really know. I'd say I saved myself $5,000 in labor or something like that. It's not a concrete number that I can really calculate, I guess, because I don't know like how much I really contributed. I was just basically an extra pair of hands. But for me, at least, I am really happy that I had the opportunity to do this, because I learned a whole heck of a lot. And most days I had fun. Some days I didn't, but a lot of the days I did. Now there is one sort of concrete thing that I can add to the list of savings for doing it myself, and that is this thing here. So now that we know how much it costs to rent a man lift, a telehandler is a little bit more. So had we had rented a telehandler as well as that lift, the man lift, I guess we'd spend at least another $6,000 on a telehandler rental. So this one project alone covered about, 15% of what I paid for this machine. So that's the only concrete number I have that I can really share, I guess. I don't know how much value I bring. But this thing, I know how much value it brings. So a couple more questions, or I guess overall topics I thought I'd cover in this video. So first off, would I do this again? I would do this again. I'd go back in time and do it again. But I don't think I'd want to do this again in the future. This was a heck of a lot of work. It was a great learning experience, but it was a lot. it was a lot to be involved with, and not having done anything like this before didn't make it particularly easy either. But I'm really happy and really proud that we were able to actually do this and put the building up, and there it stands, and whatnot. So great experience. I would do that. I would do this one again, but I don't think I would build another building. Maybe a smaller one. I would do a small one. Like if I wanted to, I don't know, replace one of the horse shelters or something. Like I could do that. That'd be fine. That sounds like a fun time. Doing another big barn thing. No, I'm good. I was sore for days after doing that roof. It's gonna be a good sunset tonight. Look at this. That's beautiful. So lastly, on the size of the building, this has been kind of an interesting one. Do I wish it was bigger? Because that's always the thing. Should have gone bigger. So the biggest, I guess, two limiting factors for the size of this building. First off is the actual physical size and scale of the building, and how it relates to the property and what we want to have on our property. And this is pretty darn close to like as big of a building as I want to look at sitting up here on this hill. I could probably have gotten away with a little bit bigger, like if we had more lead time or something, and we could have gotten a kit that was like 45 wide, and maybe I could go to like 80 long, but that's really about it. This is already like a pretty substantial building, and anything bigger than this would just look super out of place, super ridiculous, and we wouldn't want it here on our property. The other side to that is this, and all of its cost is that's about it. That's all we could do. So this was already quite a stretch for us. So anything bigger than this, I don't think we could have really afforded it, or I would have to make cuts or compromises to other places. But I'm really happy with the balance that I was able to strike between like doing things that I could always change or fix or upgrade in the future without any detriment to the rest of the building. So like I really wanted the in-floor heat. You can't add that in the future, but I also wanted this lean-to porch area here to kind of help with the exterior aesthetics and give me some actual covered storage that I could utilize as well. That can be added literally anytime. Now, one thing that I did do kind of earlier on, or like the day after we ordered materials, is I decided to make the building one bay bigger. So it was originally going to be 7 bays long. That was like 63 feet. And then we added the additional bay there to make it 72. And kind of the cost on adding a bay ended up being around $12,000. So from this post to there and all the way across is about $12,000. So there are some fixed costs and some variable costs with this that you can kind of scale if you want to kind of change the dimensions of the building. Some things aren't going to change, but things like adding a bay, you need another footing, you need another post, you need another truss, you need the concrete under the floor, the concrete for the floor, the insulation under the floor, all the insulation that wraps all the way up and around and everything. So you can kind of figure out your per square foot cost generally of each bay. And that's kind of the fun thing that I learned about this style building is it's modular. So you can add and shrink and do whatever you want with the building. There's some snow falling off the roof. So you can kind of play around with things, and it's very interesting how this building structure is put together because it's very, very much modular. So that is sort of the cost so far to this first phase of the building, the I guess minimum viable state of the building that allows it to be functional and usable for my business, which is, it's a nice place to finally be at. Still a ways to go, but at least it's functional now, which is nice. It's like really nice. And we, of course, still have a few little things here and there. We got the corner trims to put on. We got the door trim to do as well. But again, those are in consequential by a long shot. So that's where things sort of shook out with the building, at least so far. I think very obviously, something this size and everything I want to do out here, still, I will be well over 200,000 for this stupid barn thing. It is what it is, but it's kind of a lot. At least it's got a good view. I'll give it that. It's got a nice view. So that is going to do it for this one. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions about whatever decision-making process, why I did certain things. I will probably do a separate video kind of answering those questions to hopefully help anyone out that's looking to build some kind of build like this for whatever it is you plan to do. That's the other thing to keep in mind. My use case is probably different than yours. Good or bad. So thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments on the stupid barn thing, please feel free to leave me a comment. As always, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking. I can't wait to just go back to woodworking and stop building crap. That's not furniture.